All right. Thanks again for joining us here with Friends Dash Talk, and today we have a special guest, Mr. Adrian Rosado. How do you pronounce your last name?
Rosado.
Rosado. All right.
Yes.
All right. So Mr. Rosado here is an entrepreneur, just all-around businessman. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and about your company?
Absolutely. First and foremost, I would say thank you for having me on the podcast. It's always a pleasure supporting other entrepreneurial endeavors and supporting other people with passions that they want to follow. So thank you very much, everybody involved.
You're welcome.
That's Adrian Rosado. That's how you pronounce it.
All right.
It's funny because I was actually doing another interview a few months back, and they asked me the same question. I didn't realize Rosado was such a hard word to pronounce. But yeah, so to touch on your question, I have a company. I have a couple companies actually. My main company is the Zion Group, and under the Zion Group, I have the Millennial.B, and then I have the Cultural Clarity Experience. We're actually releasing the Cultural Clarity Experience this month. It's May. Today's May 2nd. So in about 2 weeks, we're going to be releasing the Cultural Clarity Experience, and I'll talk to you guys about that later on.
Cultural Clarity Experience. That's already like blowing my mind, right?
Yes. Thank you. That's that's the point.
Yeah.
That's the point. So it can really get you to start getting those wheels moving, right?
Yeah.
So, but I'll tell you about the Zion Group and the Millennial.B, which are really awesome companies that I was able to found 5 years ago with some really awesome people. The Zion Group, what we do is we provide leadership, communication, and diversity training at the corporate level and the federal level. The Millennial.B, we provide leadership, diversity training, and cohort development at the university level. So when you think of the Zion Group, you think of diversity leadership training. When you think of the Millennial.B, you think of the same thing, but just with university students.
Right.
We've been doing this for 5 years now. Our initial program was in 2012. Our first contract was in Texas. Yeah, so you have a kid from Chicago trying to start this company, and you get your first contract in Texas.
How did that happen?
How did that happen?
Yes.
Great story. So the way that happened is when I was doing my MBA at Eastern Illinois University, I had a graduate assistantship out of the Office of Student Life. So out of the 4 graduate assistants, I was the only MBA student. The other 3 graduate assistants were student affairs master's program students. So when we all graduated, I went into marketing. So I'm not sure if you guys have heard of Leo Burnett. The marketing, I worked for them right after I finished graduating. The other 3, they went on to become directors at universities.
Wow.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
So while I was a graduate assistant, one of my main roles was to develop leadership development programs for student government, the staff of the Student Life Office, as well as the other recognized student organizations. So when we all graduated, about a year after we all graduated, I get a call from one of the other graduate assistants, who is now a director at a university.
Texas.
Yes, in Texas.
Okay.
So she gives me a call. She says, "Hey, Adrian, are you still developing leadership programming?" I said, "Hey, what are we talking about? Let's talk about some details, and anything's possible, right?"
Oh yeah.
So we agreed on a number. She said it was 4 or 5 hours of training, 120 students. Leadership, motivation, overcoming obstacles were the topics that she wanted to encompass. So I met with some of my teammates at the time, some of my team members.
The ones that you went to school with before?
No, just some people that I've worked with prior.
Oh, yeah.
We had developed programming.
Brainstorming.
Just brainstorming just through other endeavors. And I said, you know what, these are the 2 people that I want on this project. So we sat down, we developed a 4-hour curriculum. We flew out to Texas. I took a production person as well. He recorded the whole thing, chopped it up, edited it, and then we implemented the program, and then we just started marketing it after that.
Just like that? Mm-hmm. Wow. That's a lot of escalation,
Absolutely.
A lot of
very organic
together, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, we have to escalation for sure, but you have to make sure that, or we had to make sure that we were focusing that energy in the right direction.
Oh yeah.
So especially with the marketing material, we had to make sure that was game tight at the time. If you look at our first video versus what we have now, very different.
Very different.
Yeah.
Same breath.
Yeah. Right, it's evolution, right? Evolution, growth, learning, things of that nature. But But I do have to say this. I have to give a lot of acknowledgments and a lot of thank yous to the directors, because not only were we pushing our video in our program, but the directors at the university, they pushed it out to their listserv, they pushed it out to their networks.
Support is always awesome.
Absolutely. So it went from, us pushing it to universities calling or emailing me asking for the programming, which, as you guys know in business, is not necessarily always the case. Cold calling, all the time, cold calling, networking, that's huge. So for us to be blessed in the sense where people were hearing about us without us having to reach out 5 times in a month was absolutely a blessing, and it helped us strategically move forward with the program.
Wow.
And actually our third, fourth, and fifth programs ended up being back in Texas just because of their push and their marketing and their support. So we ended up getting Texas Tech, a couple of the schools, Weatherford College,
nice.
Just because of the push that they were doing. So it was like, the funny part about that was I had such a stronghold, not a stronghold, but a strong presence in Chicago because I was born and raised here. And people are like, wow, this is our guy from Chicago.
Right.
Why is he doing all this work in Texas? And what's going on in Illinois? What's going on in Chicago? So that was initially starting out. It raised a lot of eyebrows.
I got 2 quick things to say. Number one, in the radio industry, usually, like, Chicago's a big city, but usually when you get into the radio industry, you have to step out of this environment and build up a name somewhere else. So it sounds like that's kind of what your experience was. Right. Also, I want to take a step back from your like how the programs got started, and I want to know, like, what's the difference between the Millennial.B, Zion, and the cultural clarity experience.
Yes. Well, let's put the cultural clarity experience in a whole different.
Right, because we're gonna talk about that later.
Let's keep that over here, because that's completely different than what we do with the Zion group and the Millennial.B.
Before you do that, let me ask you something about the Zion. When you are motivating people, like, how do you get them? How do you know that they do what you want them to do? How do you know that, like, if you are, like in Texas, when you went down there and you talk about motivation and what again?
It was motivation, leadership, and overcoming obstacles.
Okay. How do you tell somebody how to overcome an obstacle? What do you do? What do you say? And how do you know that they do what you tell them to do?
Okay. I'll touch on that one really quickly because I have a quick answer for that, and then I'll go right back to over here. So when you say, how do I motivate people and how do I tell them how to overcome obstacles, that's a great question because I don't. Like what I said, this is sometimes tends to be a misconception, right? I'm not a motivational speaker. So if I say something that motivates you, cheers. And by all means, thank you. Buy me a drink afterwards. You know what I mean? But what we do is we develop curriculum so that you motivate yourself, so that you identify your own obstacles, you identify your own ways of overcoming those obstacles.
Okay.
We're providing a curriculum so that you walk through that. I'm not here to tell you anything. I'm not here to put you in a position where, Adrian told me this and it didn't work. Absolutely not. I'm not talking to anybody, I'm not speaking at anybody. We're learning together. So we developed a curriculum where everybody's learning as a group. So, we could have a conversation right now. I'd be able to run a workshop right now with just us 4. And we'd do the same, and we would go through the same exact workshop. You'd have a different answer, you'd have a different answer, you'd have a different answer. But the way you develop those answers, you came up to those answers and to those conclusions will be the same way.
The same thing.
Yeah.
So essentially, your curriculum, your program brings out the best in people with their own help.
Absolutely. So that's again, and I'll say this: I'm a millennial. So the way I like to learn is by doing things on my own.
You're a millennial?
Yes.
All right.
So-
We had this conversation a couple weeks ago about the different generations and everything. So we'll talk about that a little
That was
later.
actually one of my, that was my capstone from MBA, was the generational divide. So how to work in the, yeah, right?
Yeah, because you claim you're millennialism, whatever. Like I try to deny that I'm a millennial.
No, absolutely. I definitely don't. I rock for it, I ride for it.
Generation Y.
And that's what and it's like, because there's so many different ways that we learn, millennials. There's so many different ways that I learned growing up. So when I develop these programs, or you look at like motivational speakers, or you look at like
Roberts, that big tall guy.
Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I look at myself and I say, if I was going to something like this, how did I want to learn? During my MBA classes, how did I like to learn? I didn't like learning through lecture. That's not really my thing. That's why I didn't go to to a different graduate program. I wanted to do an MBA because it was hands-on. I was able to work with people. Very much team projects, right? That's how I learned. That's how a lot of my friends learn. So in developing these programs around leadership, motivation, overcoming obstacles, I said, what's the best way to learn? You work together,
So
interact.
you develop course. For example, I'm still not quite there yet. For example, you would say, what would you say? If I am a student at Triton and I'm in your class, in your course, how would you present your work to me, to the class?
Well, again, it's culminating. So we start with one course, kind of like an icebreaker, and then we lead into other topics. So whether it be goal setting, whether it be vision development, whether it be team building, these are all very specific topics that we take you on a journey through, if you will.
Sorry, still not getting it, and I consider myself to be fairly smart.
You're not a millennial, so you're lucky.
Maybe that's the problem here. Maybe that's the problem. Okay, so you would tell them to write down, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Write it down on a piece of paper. Work towards it.
Well, I don't want to give the exact things that we say, but it's something along those lines.
Okay, so you have like a vision board. I have my vision board, and you are coming today, and in 5 years I'm at Triton, I want to be a doctor. So I see I have to take biology, I have to take chemistry, I have to take my science classes. I have to do an internship maybe in a clinic or something. I have to, and then take my MedCats, I think?
MCATs.
MCATs? Some cats. Sorry, MCAT. And then be a doctor. So I have to do my stuff step by step with your focus, your leadership, your help, your...
Yes, that's also very specific. So think more along the lines of professional development. So that's a good way to put it. Everybody in here would have a different answer for that, right?
Yeah.
If I said, where do we see ourselves in 5 years, right? Okay, so now so where do we see ourselves in 5 years? Where do we see ourselves in 3 years? Where do we see ourselves in 1 year? So how do we break that down into actionable solutions?
Okay.
Where everybody else
Now
has,
I get it.
Where everybody else has,
Different stuff.
different things.
They want different things.
Yes.
So you have to small steps, and
Exactly.
accomplish your small steps.
Well, identify your small steps.
Identify your small steps. Do your do the stuff.
And before you even get to
your
there,
small steps.
you have to, what I like to do is identify our personal obstacles before we even get to professional.
Like personal obstacles, like you have to study to be a doctor. You can't just, and be a
No,
doctor.
like the type of person that you are.
Like different personality types?
Yes.
You guys getting that deep?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I was thinking like you're in order for this program to really be a success, because every individual has their own like issues, you know, they're in their own way of thinking and everything. So it's like you got to get really specific with this person.
And that's why I say it's culminating, because that's one of the first things we do. That's one of our first courses, is really finding out what type of learner you are, how you learn best, how you think best, how you develop the best way. One of our programs through the Millennial.B is called Lead the Way. It's a cohort program, and it's a 6-part program. So the first 2 programs, so 6 parts, right? So the first 2, we take them through all of our workshops. The 3rd part, they take part in the diversity panel that we were talking about. The 4th part, they start developing their own workshops. The 5th part, they rehearse their workshops with me. The 6th part, we bring in 50 high school students and they implement those workshops.
Leadership. That's awesome.
Wow.
So
that's a lot of work.
That is a lot of work.
But to get from point A to point B,
Yep.
it is a lot of work.
absolutely.
To get there. So you have to know, you're right, know what type of person, how you learn. Because I learn by doing stuff. It can talk to me 50 times, it's gone. But I have to do everything myself to get it.
Yes.
That's
Interesting.
awesome.
So that's, yeah.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because it's one thing I like to get out early, is that I'm definitely not a motivational speaker. I'm too.
I get it.
Sometimes I'm a little too. I can pop off at the mouth sometimes, so really I'm not, right? But even like in terms of like keynotes, like I'll get contracted to do keynotes a lot because of what I've built over 5 years. So even like the keynote, sometimes people will be like, oh, so it's like a motivational keynote. Not really. What it is it motivates people because I tell them about my journey, but it's not like I'm saying you can do it. No, absolutely not. Life isn't that easy. You know, life is not that easy.
Be real.
So it's about, typically my keynotes revolve around growing up in a single parent household, none of my parents having education, my grandmother in the household, things of that nature, and things that I had to overcome in order to start a company as a minority in the early 2000s, things of that nature.
So it's like a testimony.
Absolutely. So again, if it motivates you,
That's good.
by all means. But that's not the thing. What I'm trying to give you are tools and a roadmap, if you will.
To motivate yourself to get where you want to go.
Yeah, or typically a lot of my stuff revolves around like starting businesses.
Okay.
So that's what I get a lot is, how did you start your business? And, what were some of the obstacles around business? I get like a lot of entrepreneur panels that they'll ask me to go on, but it always boils down back to, the obstacles I had to overcome, which are typically very different from general market.
Would you say that the obstacles that you overcame, were they like more common, something that most kids could find in common with, or something like that? Or how would you separate your obstacles from anyone else?
Yeah, because I have a question similar to that, so I like that. Got it.
Well, my obstacles were very, very specific. And yes, people couldn't relate to them, and that's the point, right? But I wouldn't say that they were relatively common. I mean, not everybody is growing up in a single parent household where their mother is 18. So my mother conceived me at 17, had me at 18.
Wow.
So yeah, single parent household, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that's just one angle. How many parents are having them at 18 and also a Puerto Rican woman? So now you have a Puerto Rican woman raising a son who's also trying to maintain a corporate job where it's male dominated. So how is she supposed to support her son, especially as a Latina woman, and she might not be getting the same respect or pay raise that she deserves, right?
Oh, yeah.
So then within 9 years of that, she quits her job to start her own company, right? So these are all very different obstacles that you face. In my case, again, more specifically in my case, Puerto Rican family, didn't know anybody who went to college. I was first generation. So who am I supposed to ask? You know, there might be general market Caucasian students who have single parent households, but typically they're not first generation. So who am I supposed to ask about the college process? Am I even supposed to go to college? You know, how am I supposed to get this high paying job to support my family that I've never seen anybody that looks like me in? I have nobody to ask. You know, I have my counselors to ask, but do they know where I come from? No, they're just gonna put me through the same regimented process that every other student gets through. Well, guess what? I don't know what that means. So I can't push back even if I wanted to. You know, and I say that, to be more specific, I say that because initially I have a political science undergrad. I want to do that because I want to become an attorney. So I have a political science international studies undergrad. By the time I was my second semester of my sophomore year, I knew I didn't want to do it, you know? But did my counselor tell me any differently? Did I know any differently freshman year? No. So now I have to go through another year and a half of something I don't want to do because I'm already so vested into it.
Yeah, that's the problem with college.
You know? Yeah, that was the problem with college. Well, that kind of is now, but there's more people like yourself and I and us here that know the process now, that understand the questions that need to be asked, that understand the processes that need to be followed to really get a better gauge for what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so could that have saved me a lot of time had I known somebody? Absolutely. Did I know anybody? No. So is that an obstacle? For sure. How many people, I don't even want to say students, because I know a lot of adults now, we'll say 25 to 35, that want to go back to college, and they're asking me, Adrian, you know, what was the process? You know, I had my graduate degree before I was 25. I got it at 25. So I just rushed it, not rushed it, I just took it all out just because I knew I didn't want to have to go back later. There was a year in between my undergrad and my grad, and I went for a job and they told me that I didn't have the qualifications. So that's when I automatically went back to get my master's, because I didn't want to be like, 30 something years old and somebody telling me I can't have that job because I'm not qualified. You know, so I took that personally, just from seeing my mother being with the glass ceiling with my mother, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, I took that very personally and saying, hey, what are you gonna tell me now? I don't have the qualifications on paper?
You're too qualified.
Right, that's what they were saying.
You're overqualified.
Yeah. But what that also did for me was it allowed me to be a resource to people, not just in my community, but in different states and wherever I went to. It allowed me to be a resource to other people who want to possibly pursue a graduate degree. Well, Adrian, what's the process? What are some obstacles that I'm going to face in grad school? First and foremost, you're probably going to be one of, 5 Latinos or max 10 African Americans in your cohort. So get ready for that. If you think going to undergrad was a culture shock, when you go to grad school, I think it's like, I forgot what the percentage was, but it's a super low percentage for African American and Latino males. There's more minority females in grad school than there are males. So, you're talking about just a really, I don't want to say shock, because it wasn't a shock, but just...
Well, in this day and age, if you are going to go to grad school or undergrad, you have an idea that it's going to be rough. So you have to work twice as hard to get even the smallest amount of respect.
Yes.
And you have to stay up nights and you have to do everything that your white counterpart does twice as hard and twice as just hard. Just hard.
Eyes are always on you too.
Always.
Especially as a minority, eyes are always on you, So that's always the funny part is.
You said as a Rosado?
No, as a minority.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Rosado versus you.
Eyes are always on you,
Yes.
it's always,
We're paying attention.
Yeah, it's funny, now I look back and I definitely didn't expect the conversation to go this way, but it's pretty cool because now it's making me reflect. But now I look back and, a lot of my team projects were with other minorities. in grad school. So
interesting.
you kind of look at it, and you kind of, when you first walk into that room, first day of class, you kind of look like,
Yeah,
Hey,
right.
am I the only one in here?
Exactly, right?
what's going on?
Right, exactly.
Shout out to my guy Brandon Nelson.
Right.
He and I did a lot of projects together.
Hey, go.
My question is, overcoming obstacles. Like, were you from the South Side?
The south side? No.
Okay,
Logan Square.
Logan Square.
So north side.
North Side, okay. I'm not, okay, do not put people together. How
We're gonna have to have a workshop with her.
how do you,
Unconscious bias.
how do you, okay, how do you, I know.
I'll edit it, okay?
Thank you. This is good.
Where you from, Juan? The south side? How are you spelling that again? Rodriguez? You're one of my favorite people.
I know when she says south side, I thought she was gonna say like 26th Street. I never thought she was gonna
So when did you get out of county?
Hey, there's so much truth to it,
Oh, God.
Hey, how long? We'll go over here. We'll go over here for a little bit.
bro. I'm gonna talk
No, that is not where I was going, but I get it. That's why I said we're not put people together because I know it's wrong. And I know we do it, but it's still wrong. Okay. How do you motivate? Do not put people together. How do you motivate somebody who
doesn't know anything about motivation, who's in an environment that's
who
completely
is from a
unmotivated.
still single mother household, and their mother is not doing much to motivate herself, much less her child. But a lot of times, if you're a good parent, you do want your child to do much better than you do. You do want your child to do that. So how would you tell Miss Thomas that about her son, to put something in her son's head, like, I want to go to college. I want to at least finish high school. I don't want to do what mommy does, like sit home and does nothing. How do you put it in that person's head, like, I want more than mommy? So how do you do that?
That's another great question. I work with a lot of specific departments that serve first generation, low income or non-traditional students. I don't know if you guys have heard of TRIO. TRIO.
I've never heard of them.
It's a federally funded program that works with, again, first generation, low income or non-traditional students. So typically those students fall into the type of student that you're talking about. So with that said, I've been doing this long enough where as unique as you think everybody's situation is, there's still a common ground for most people. I'm not saying it's one common ground, but it can be a set of common grounds, whether it comes from lack of a positive role model, whether it comes from lack of financial assistance. These are all kind of, I kind of call them boats, right? So you guys may have very specific issues that could fall under the same boat, right? Where your mom might be supportive, but she just doesn't have the financial means to. She might be supportive mentally, right? Where she's like, you know what, you need to go to college, you need to do this, but she can't put you to college, through college. She can't pay for after school programs. She has to worry about, a couple other kids. That's financial, right? And maybe your mom just doesn't want to do it. But so you're getting a positive experience, you're getting a negative experience, but it's still in the same boat. So that's what I've come to kind of learn over these past 5-6 years, is that there's just a set of common grounds, if you will. So when addressing students like that,
I have a question. So how do you speak to the Latino community? Because the Latino community, as you and I know, we come, it's different even with the African Americans, the white. How do you speak to Latinos?
in English.
I thought you were gonna take this. I actually have a Zoom just to
Hey, you saw I gave her that little pause too. Gave her the look. She's like, "Oh yes, I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for it." But I mean, you guys are hitting me with the power punches today. You know?
Big question.
Yeah.
Let me repeat that question.
Yeah, definitely.
I haven't even got to my list yet.
All right, here we go. Zoom in. So how do you speak to the Latino community? Because you and I know that Latinos, they usually don't go to college. First generations end up going to college. Maybe my sister, maybe not. Maybe I was the first Latino woman that in my family, my whole family, that went to college. How do you speak to them? Because I feel like Latinos are a bit more shy when it comes to going to college and speaking out. Even though, you hear us everywhere, you hear our music everywhere, but we're still shy. How do you talk to them?
That's actually a lot easier than most people think, because I've gotten that question before, absolutely. I'm Latino, so the first part that comes, the first introduction to a successful person that they're seeing, me as a facilitator or me as a keynote, is somebody that looks like them, right? So again, what I do is I really format my obstacles initially. Who here comes from single parent household? Who here has undocumented family members? Again, it's not them, but it could be somebody that they know. So that's already opening up the level of trust amongst myself and the audience. And maybe I should probably digress slightly. I have a phenomenal team that I work with. And they're all of different backgrounds, different colors, different shades, different sizes, males, females, phenomenal team members that have amazing stories as well. So if it's not a keynote and it's an actual program, a course, a full day course, I'm bringing at least 2 or 3 of them with me. So there's multiple people talking to them about their background, right? So I'll bring in half African American, half white, one of my facilitators, right? So now he could speak to that experience. One of my other awesome facilitators, she's also one of my curriculum advisors. She's Mexican American, first generation college student. She's amazing, master's degree, has her own company as well. So she speaks to that undocumented student, right? We'll call it that undocumented student. She speaks to that obstacle. So again, it's what I found, and that's a good question because it also it allows me to say what differentiates us, right? So it allows me to go in there with multiple stories behind me. So if you're looking, so you might not identify with me, but you're gonna identify with one of my team members.
Somebody else.
And that automatically draws trust. So and we'll take it even deeper, and we'll say when we were growing up and there was a keynote or there was a leadership training or there was a diversity training, typically it was either a Caucasian dude, I don't think growing up, I don't think I ever had a Caucasian woman. It was typically white males, a couple African American males, and that was pretty much it until I'd say 10 years ago. I mean, look at all what'd you say earlier, Tony Robbins, right?
Yes.
So that's the first thing that comes to your mind.
Yes, because that's who.
Yes, that's what you think of. So I go in, and let's not even talk about the obstacles on the business end that I have to deal with these other people who don't like a young Latino male jumping in on their business. But I come in with a team that not only is colorful, if you will, but not relatively, but ridiculously successful. You know, because I don't like the term relative when it comes to us describing ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? You know, you're relatively successful compared to other Latinos or Puerto Ricans. No, man. I'm relatively successful to the general market.
Hey.
You know? So, you know, let's be real.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm glad we got into this conversation because over the past 3 years I've been able to slightly transition myself out from being the face all the time to allowing my team members to really take the reins and guide the program and the process.
That is good, because it's just like us here. Sometimes it's me, sometimes her, sometimes it's him. So you have to give each person who have a special talent, have them shine, let them have their time.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, we're going on 6 years now. I've been working with the same 7-ish people for 5-6 years.
6 years.
So not only do I trust them, but we've learned from each other over the years.
Yes, that is
So, you know, whether or not I open up the day, I don't need to because again, this is a curriculum. We develop multiple curriculums. You know where we need to go with this activity. You know the learning objectives. You know the outcomes that we're looking for. You know the specific student that we're working with. You know how to facilitate this, and you add your specific flair. You know, you add your specific, you know, nuances to the program, and people view it differently, but they still get the same outcome.
You know, I love that because what I've learned just in my experience, I've learned that in order to be a leader, you have to learn how to follow. And in a group, in a team, like we always say, there's no I in team. And in a team, everybody has potential to be a leader because we all have, like you said, we all have our special gifts and talents. Sometimes you have a captain, somebody that drives the ship, but everybody else should know how to drive the ship too.
Absolutely.
But I wanted to ask you, when and where did you learn one of your most important lessons in leadership? Like, I know your mom was a very inspirational person in your life, but was there anyone else that you learned from, or was there like a situation? Where did you get like the bulk of your leadership? No, I wasn't asking.
Definitely don't edit that part out. Don't edit that part. That was good. That's a again haymaker left and right. Just throw that. You know, you couldn't buy me a drink first before you ease me into this conversation.
Research you.
Yeah, where did I get my inspiration? I don't think I've ever gotten that question, actually.
Wow.
I don't think I've ever gotten that question. I feel like people just assume.
Start from brace face.
Right? Where did I get my leadership inspiration from?
Anything, person that you know, someone you read about, music, movies.
Yeah. Okay, in that case.
No crying, buddy. Get it together.
Well, I'll make sure I say this the right way. Inspiration, motivation. I remember being in college, right? Obviously, my mother. We'll say she's 80%, right? But I remember being in college, and a couple albums really helped sculpt my view on leadership and my outlook on life.
Let's see, when were you in college?
So, the first album was The College Dropout.
Oh yeah.
By Kanye West. So I remember being in Chicago, and I think it was like the summer before I went to college actually, and he was in an accident. He was in a car accident.
That was 04.
Yeah, and he busted his jaw. No, I think it was before that.
Okay, no, College Dropout I think came out in 04.
Yeah, I think it was. I don't know.
03.
Because I remember The College Dropout, and I remember thinking, no, The College Dropout came out in 03, I think. Yeah, it was 03 because I was a sophomore.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to say 03. And I remember,
check our sources.
yeah. And I remember thinking to myself, you know, hearing about Kanye West and hearing about the broken jaw and hearing about he's from Chicago. And I'm like, all right, cool. This, you know, and he had that soulful sound, right?
The Wire.
Yeah. Da-na-na-na-na. I was like, man, that's Chicago right there. You know, that's Chicago. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, in hip hop, Chicago's hardly ever on the map in hip hop, right? And growing up, I grew up on hip hop. I had an uncle that's 9 years older than me, so I was always like his tail, and he was a big hip hop head. So hip hop was a really large part of my life. So, you know, hearing this Kanye West and this broken jaw, and he's really bringing this soulful sound to the mainstream, I'm like, yeah, you know, putting Chicago on the map. You know, you can't tell him, you can't stop this dude, you know? And then he drops this critically acclaimed album with all these songs that everybody around the world is talking about and is bumping. And then he's producing these tracks for Jay-Z, who's a monster at the time, you know? And I just thought about it. I'm like, man, this dude from Chicago, from the south side of Chicago, whose mother, single mother,
Yes.
right?
Single mother.
Single mother. You know, she's a teacher, and she's just supporting this man. She's supporting this man to pursue his dreams. So I remember listening to The College Dropout, and I don't know if you remember, but he dropped The College Dropout, then
Late Registration, it's my favorite
then
album.
Graduation.
Yep.
You know, all within like a year or two of each other, and that literally got me through college, and that was almost like, you know, sophomore, junior, senior year, and I remember thinking, you know, this dude is doing things on his own terms. He's looking the way, you know, he's not fitting the mold that other hip hop artists are, and he's getting respect from everybody for his talents and for his relentless pursuit. So, you know, I'd have to say that's when I knew that I was like, you know what, that's me. I can relate to this cat. You know, this is my guy. You know, I'm in college and I'm in the cornfields and you're either white or black and there's a couple Mexicans sprinkled in. But there was definitely no Puerto Ricans. So, you know, like, who do you kick it with? You know, so I found myself spending a lot of time with the African American cats, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, we'd be hooping and you're just thinking like, yeah, this is, if he can do it, I can do it. And I don't have to necessarily do it on anybody else's terms. So hopefully that answered your question.
The album is
Okay.
out in O2.
Excuse me?
The album O2.
O2?
Oh, too?
The album came out in
Well, I bet I know that what year the other two came out.
3 and 4.
No, it didn't. Came out in 05 and 07.
Yeah, it's a graduate 6. Yeah. So that's a timeline. Freshman.
That's dope.
You know, yeah. So,
All right. I wasn't like all up in your phone and stuff, but I saw you had a graduation like on your phone, so I was like, okay, like you listen to Kanye. But it's interesting that you that like Kanye, and maybe not necessarily him, but like his concepts and everything, like how that motivated you. Because I think he's pretty motivating also.
and don't let me take away from and like definitely don't let me take away from Common either. So Common was another integral part of me growing up. He was a couple years older than Kanye, but prior to that, he was kind of our face.
Oh yeah.
You know, while he was a very, you know, labeled as a conscious rapper, he was still respected for his lyricism. So, you know, in circles, he was very much respected. So I don't want to take anything away from him because he had a very single parent household as well.
And he grew up on King Drive over there.
I read I don't know if you read his One Day It All Makes Sense.
Yeah.
His autobiography.
Okay, no, I never read it.
So that's that's an awesome story in a book talking about how he grew up, and that had a lot of inspiration for me as well. My mother read it as well. I gave it to her. I was like, hey, you got to read this book.
Dope.
Does a company have to start failing before they give you a call?
Absolutely not. No, they don't have to start failing. Well, let's
Okay,
change
like,
I know, right? We went from here, we're like,
for instance,
gears.
the Huber guy, Mr. Huber, the guy who,
Uber.
the guy,
The guy that created Uber?
yeah, he says that he needs help with his leadership. Is it something like that you would be like interested in, or you just stick primarily to schools?
Oh no, we do corporate.
Good question.
Yeah, we definitely do corporate training as well.
So if he picked up the phone and says, Mr. Adrian, X, Y, and Z, would you go?
Absolutely.
In a heartbeat, that's
Yeah.
Uber. That's money.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I figure out what the, definitely I take it. I mean, it's about ultimately, if we look at it from a bird's eye view in terms of business, what we did as a company, this is just one aspect of training. But if you look at it from a higher level, we developed something from the ground up, right? So we saw a problem, we identified a problem, and we developed solutions, right? So yes, so that's where we're at. For instance, for like an Uber, that's where we'd serve as kind of like a consulting company. How do we analyze the problem? How do we develop a solution for it? So think instructional design. How can we, as a team, figure out where the core root of your problem is, and then we'll develop a program to address that.
Okay.
Which is really what we've done from the beginning, but it just comes off as training because we're not necessarily selling the analyzing and the business development portion.
About to train. All right, so we got one last question, just kind of like some fun. Like, what do you like to do for fun? Like, just really quick. Like, how do you relax your mind?
Don't look at me.
Want the real answer? No, I'm joking.
I got it.
I'll put on a piece of paper. I'm gonna hand it to everybody around.
Text it to you, right?
Especially when you ask a question like that. Oh man, I think this is the first time I met you. This is the second time I met them. So they know, but I travel a lot. I travel extensively, a lot. Whether it's for work, and even if I am traveling for work, I typically will take like an extra week or two to really delve into wherever I'm at and eat that culture up, right? And really take it in.
That's awesome, and we're so limited on time, but you got great answers. Could you just explain to us and the audience how important it is to travel? Why that is so important to you? And
absolutely, and this goes into we can knock out a couple birds with one stone. So that's how we developed the cultural clarity experience.
Okay.
Boom. So with the cultural clarity experience, I developed this, I thought about this, you guys probably figured out by now, I like to create. So about 2 months ago, I started writing 2 years ago vignettes about my travels. And people had really started to take really highly to them. So I was in Hawaii, I spent about 6 weeks in Hawaii, and I learned how to paddleboard. So when I was out there, I wrote about my experience paddleboarding and how I adapted that to my leadership ability. So it took patience, right? It took being aware of my surroundings. It took me understanding that I had to take a seat back because even though I'm a leader, on ground, in the water, I know nothing, right? So these are all things I started writing vignettes like that. So then when I went to China, I started writing about that. When I went to Peru, I started writing about what I learned.
Wow.
So I went to the Great Wall and I was writing about.
You did the Great Wall too?
Yeah, so that was intense. So what I decided to do was start the cultural clarity experience. So that's where all my blogs are at, and I bring in other friends of mine that are travelers to write about their experiences traveling.
Wow.
So that's one section. The second part involves my podcast, the Cultural Clarity Experience, where I interview people around the globe. So I have 3 podcasts already. When I went to China, I interviewed my buddy, Roderick Chambers. he used to work for the Millennial Dad as a curriculum developer, and then he took a director position in China for an adult training center. So I went to China to work with his adults for contextual awareness, and then I also interviewed him about his experience in China as an African American male with dreadlocks. And I say with dreadlocks because it's a very important facet to his living over there. While I was out there, his dreadlocks were very much, was color for sure, is definitely something that stands out. But there would be kids that would walk up to him and like just grab his hair. So
they're real long too.
Yeah, they're long enough. But just imagine doing that every day, dealing with that, not dealing with that, but experiencing that every day. My second podcast is with the founder of Hawaii Hispanic News. So I flew from Shanghai to Honolulu, and then when I was in Honolulu, I interviewed him about his experience. He went from New York, Mississippi, Pakistan, Taiwan, Japan, and then finally settled in Hawaii.
Whoa.
Yeah. So then we interviewed him about his experiences within diversity and how it's changed through his travels.
Wow.
Yeah. So I have 4 interviews right now, but traveling to me has opened up so many doors that's why I started the Cultural Clarity Experience, because we live in Chicago, and although it may be one of the largest cities in the U.S., in the world, we're babies. I was in Beijing. What are we, 5 million in Chicago, maybe? 5, 6 million, something like that?
Something like that.
Yeah, I was in Beijing. There's 30 million people. I was in Shanghai, 30 million people. I was in the 7th largest city, which is Wuxi, 12 million people.
Wow.
Yeah, so, traveling just really, really, really puts so many things in perspective. Whether it's culture, whether it's language, whether it's food, whether it's the way people look, So, quick case in point, why are we so different? Why are the Chinese people in China so curious about the way we look? Or why they want to know more about us? Because it's such a homogenous population out there that, they look at us and they're like, wow, that's
different.
They that's different. Where us in the US, we're indirectly being trained to be global citizens because we get to interact and we get to envision or see different colors, different shapes, different sizes on a daily basis. Where say somebody in China, they don't get that privilege.
Opportunity.
Yeah.
They don't get it.
Yeah.
However, they have more of their culture, whereas over here we have a combined culture of all of our different cultures, and then we kind of have an American culture, which is
Exactly. Well, I had my buddy actually. What did he say? He said my buddy, the editor for Hawaii Hispanic News, he's awesome, but he had a great comparison. He said, Americans, what they call it, a melting pot, right?
Right.
It's a melting pot. So kind of like you said, all these cultures kind of blend into each other, right? I don't know if you guys have ever been to Hawaii, but Hawaii, there's a lot of culture in Hawaii too. But the way he described Hawaii is really good. So, mainland is a melting pot where Hawaii is a tossed salad. So, in Hawaii, you have all these cultures in one place, but if you take them out, they're all rich on their own. Mm-hmm. But like you said, in America, our cultures are not as rich separately because we have this overarching American culture that's still kind of confusing. And I learned that firsthand. Going to Hawaii so much, it's 5 hours away from plane from California. They kind of like live in their own world. That's one of the more respectful and unique cultures I've ever encountered. So if you ever get a chance, definitely check it out over there.
Definitely going to Hawaii.
So melting pot, tossed salad.
I don't know where this question falls in, but I'm a Jamaican. You and Annabelle are Latinas. Do you bring your Latina culture?
She like the bullies.
I'm just American. He's an American.
We're like, he's an American. Do you bring your Latina How much of your Latina culture do you bring to America, and do you still observe it? Do you still practice it? Like Hannibal talks about her grandmother and this tea. Sometimes, like, what is it about your
tea?
Canada.
There you
Okay.
go, Canada. Okay, what is it about your specific culture that you will forever observe in America?
Oh, that's a great question, but it's actually pretty easy. One thing I love about my culture is my music. So salsa, reggaeton. If you look at,
Reggaeton?
yeah, it definitely started in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
So
Definitely started in Puerto Rico.
yeah, so and you look at again from a business point of view. I look at how things have progressed, right? So, I'm sure people have heard of Nicky Jam or J Balvin or Daddy Yankee, right? These are all people who are getting like crazy shine now, right? But they've been hustling for 20 years. I remember them 15 years ago when they started out as rappers, and now they're getting their shine on a global level because of singing these chart-topping hits, right? But I remember being 14 years old listening to them rap, in the cities of Puerto Rico, right? So, you look at another one like a Ricky Martin, a Mark Anthony. I mean, these are people that have just, curated and cultivated our culture on a musical end for so long. And these are just, Mark Anthony, some would argue that he's, the king of salsa, He's very much revered amongst all cultures and all aspects of music, right? And now you have, and we can even go from music to just culture as a whole. Have you heard of Lin-Manuel Miranda, the creator of Hamilton? That's another one of my inspirations. Is Lin-Manuel Miranda just continually creating and going back to Puerto Rico and consistently being an advocate for things that are going on there. So the arts, the music, that's something that'll never, the language, the flair. The flair, absolutely the flair.
The flair.
Yeah, the food, yeah, absolutely the food for sure.
When you get married and have children.
Are you married first? You didn't even ask him that question.
No, he's not.
Sorry, baby. She don't know anything. No, I'm not married.
Would you marry somebody out of your culture?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
He's a traveling man.
Isn't that like a...
If you look at Puerto Ricans, we're black, Spaniard, Indian, Native American.
Okay.
So it's,
okay.
if you go to Puerto Rico, you're going to see every color. I mean, a lot of people, I never get Puerto Rican. Nobody ever thinks I'm Puerto Rican. They always think I'm like Indian, Middle Eastern.
Yes, I remember the first conversation we had.
Yeah, so I get all types of things. So,
So you will bring your culture to your kids, right?
Absolutely, definitely.
Okay.
There's no question about
What if you marry somebody from
Jamaica?
No. somebody from Haiti.
You guys are so...
Or somebody from Hawaii or China. How would you guys work out the culture difference in your child? Because your child will be like, mommy is Chinese, daddy is Puerto Rican. So how would you bring up that child?
I mean, there's more than enough. I'm not, again, I'm a traveling man, so it's about instilling cultural values, but I'm not the only parent.
Yeah,
so
but somebody on your panel, I assume, is mixed, right? It's black and white, somebody in the panel. So is that like a big thing for them? Did they have, I know you can't talk for that person, but during that person's speech and testimony, did they say they had a hard time to begin with, or they just picked a side and go with it, they just lived their life?
Well, I can't speak for them, but I did date a young woman for a number of years who was mixed,
Okay.
African American and white, and I would ask her those questions as well, and the way she would respond is she just would, she had her time with her Caucasian family and time with her African American family, and you just mix those values. I mean, they don't have to be mutually exclusive. You can take, that's just the way I look at things, right? Traveling a lot, I meet a lot of mixed families, not just white and black, but you're talking about I have cousins that are Puerto Rican and Pakistani. So imagine that culture clash.
It's different
right?
now because a lot of young people, millennials, are like not sticking to their nationality because they realize that it's a big world. Travel, love somebody, marry somebody. No matter what your parents said, if I love you and I want to marry you, I can marry you.
Yeah, and that whole paradigm is, I should say the economy is shifting now where it's not, realistically, I don't care about your background. You just have to be you just have to be a good person.
Right.
You have to be a good person. You have to communicate. You have to compliment me. I have to be able to compliment you. We have to have good conversation. We have to be able to travel, enjoy each other's conversations again, and understand that if we're going to argue, it's just because we're so passionate about things.
It's going to be in Spanish.
Right? So,
Do you speak Spanish?
I dabble.
Yeah.
I can understand it,
Okay.
but I don't. I spoke when I was younger, then I lost it.
You think you should pick it up again?
I do when I have to. So like when I went to Peru and Spain, I can't. But my mom, we don't really speak Spanish in the household. Again, my mom's relatively young. She just turned 50. So, she grew up, in an English-speaking schools, job, all that good stuff. So Spanish, besides my grandparents, was never like a really big. So grandparents and music. So that's why music was a big deal for me, because that's how I keep the language in my ear. And then the more I travel, which is actually crazy, that's a good question, because I was telling somebody about this when I came back from China. I hadn't seen, besides my buddy, I hadn't seen an African American person in close to a month.
In China?
In China and Hawaii. I hadn't seen a Latino person in close to 3 weeks. I hadn't heard English aside from my one buddy who was only with him I was in China for like 2.5 weeks. I was only with him for a week. So I hadn't heard English, in X amount of weeks. So when I came back to Chicago and I'm seeing all these different people again, these different types of people, and I'm hearing Spanish again. That was crazy, because I hadn't heard Spanish in a month. I barely heard English. I was hearing Japanese, Chinese, broken English. And I'm like, oh man, I haven't spoken
It's a trip.
like in-depth, articulate English. In China you're speaking slow, I was at least. You're just trying to get enough so you can get by.
Right.
So when we got back to Chicago, you're like, oh man, yeah, that's how Spanish sounds, amongst people. So that was the kicker. That's why the music plays a very integral role into my life.
Awesome.
Qué bonita bandera. You're gonna know I'm Puerto Rican after this podcast.
All right. Well, I think that's the end of our podcast session today. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Adrian. Thank you so much for coming in and
Pleasure's
talking
all
with us. Like, I learned a lot from you, and I hope to learn more from you. I like to get on your team or read your book or something.
Absolutely.
Question. How do we, if we would like to come to one of your development Is it possible for us to come if we're not with a school?
Absolutely, you come on as media and cover it.
Oh yeah.
What about for people out there that are going to be watching you? How can they contact you?
You can contact me at www.theziongroup.us, or you can email me at adrian@theziongroup.us. And I look forward to inquiries, comments, anything. I love meeting people. I love engaging with people. I love sharing with people. Thank you guys for the time. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I always love being able to be reflective and learning more about you. Even though we didn't speak too much about your personal journey or yours, you can learn about people through the questions that they ask you. So I appreciate that. And thank you behind the camera. I appreciate that as well. She's Mexican, right?
Yeah.
I'm Puerto Rican, but we're Latinos.
And I'm American.
He's American. So yeah, so thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank
I think
you.
you'll love that one.
I know. But he is an American.
And a millennial.
There's nothing.
Let's just jump out the
There is not much special about him.
It's crazy.
No, it's true. He lives here. He was born
Look at
here.
Adrian, he's like,
He lives here. He was born.
Didn't we just have a
No.
conversation about diversity, culture, inclusiveness, traveling?
This is not.
Right.
this is still recording.
Oh, we still recording?
I'll make sure I don't edit that.
No, I did not.
And that's why you need training. TheZionGroup.us. Feel free to reach out.
Hey, I want to come through.
No, man, it was a pleasure, y'all.
Thank you.
Good?
Turn it up.
Can you
That's what I was. All right. Thank you again for listening to French Dash Talk. I am Bobby Braceface. You can find me on all social media under Braceface. Yeah, I got Snapchat is Braceface88. Instagram is Braceface. What is it? 87. No,
Everyone asks us the free.
just Braceface all across
I'll
the
put it
board.
on the little logo.
Okay. Cool.
Alright guys, alright. What about you, Lisa?
I'm on Facebook. I do have other problems. I'm on Facebook.
Win sometimes.
There you go.
There you go.
What about you, Adrian? Where can people follow you?
They can follow me on Instagram, __Zion. You can find the Cultural Clarity Experience on Instagram at Cultural Clarity. You can find Cultural Clarity Experience on Facebook at Cultural Clarity. You can find Cultural Clarity Experience on the web at culturalclarityexperience.com. And you can find all of our wonderful companies at theziongroup.us.
We will see you next week. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night.